Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Tech with Alan Spadja. In this video, I'll walk you through how to use route model binding in a Laravel application. Let's get started. When web application typically handles which data is being retrieved and how requests are handled through routing. So when you have a URL, you type in a browser and then you press enter. So it's either requesting for a particular item from the server or file system or database or a group of items. So let's look at what route model binding means. Route model binding allows you to automatically inject model instances into routes or controllers based on the route parameters. So it could be an ID, a ULID, or whatever that was defined. Now, there are two types of route model binding supported in Laravel. One is implicit and two explicit binding. Now, you see, for instance, you can pass a post ID and immediately obtain the post model instance rather than supplying the post ID and running a database query to acquire the post, which I'm going to show you in a moment. The implicit model binding is default in Laravel, and it works by matching the route segment name with the name of the model type hinted in the route or controller. Laravel automatically resolves Eloquent models based on route parameters. So what it does is that it assumes the parameter name matches the model's route key, ID, which is by default, or the value returned by the getRouteKeyName method. So I'm going to show you that. For example, when you come to this route here, you see it says route get posts, and then you see this is the named parameter called post. So when a request is made via this post, by post/1, Laravel automatically fetches the post with ID 1 from the database. If this post does not exist, it returns a 404 not found response. So let me use a ULID for example. So you could see it returns a 404 not found because there is no ID with such a value. So if you take it back to 2, it retrieves the post with 2. So this is better compared to having to retrieve the ID and then you have to run a database query before you return a response. So you can navigate to 2, you can navigate to 3, and then when you look at it, you see picks that post with an ID of 3. What if we want to use this ULID as a way to retrieve an article which is not easily predictable compared to using an ID? That's when customizing the key for route binding comes in. So for you to be able to do that, you can overwrite that default in the post model. So I'll go to post model here, and then you see this get route key name. I'll change it to ULID, and then so now it will no longer look at the ID, to look at the ULID. So when we save and we come here and come to the web, and then I just do refresh, same ID we've been using, I refresh, so it says 404 not found. So but when I use a ULID now, for example, it actually retrieves an article with that particular ULID. If you want to do a column other than ULID, you just go over there to the post model and then you define it using the get route key name. The next type of model binding in Laravel is called explicit model binding. Explicit model binding provides full control over how Laravel's binding logic resolves route parameters to model instances. It allows you to define custom logic for retrieving a model based on any attribute or condition, ensuring flexibility in how data is being fetched. To implement explicit model binding, use the route model method at the beginning of the boot method of your app service provider. So when you come to app service provider here, so this is what it means here. So when I do this, now you see by default, you always have something like post here, which is default in Laravel, but explicitly you want to define something other than post. Maybe you just want to use, let's say you want to use user post, for example, or something else. So you can do this here. Then when I head over here, I comment this, just comment this, and then uncomment this. So you realize that if I save and I head over here to refresh, you see that it works the same way. The same thing is being done, but now we are using something other than user post. So if I do not define this explicitly, I cannot use this user post. So you want to take control over, say probably you want to call it ULID, for example. So I'll just say go over here, call this ULID. When you hold over here, you refresh, it still does the same thing. So that's the way to define an explicit model binding in Laravel. So the next is customizing the resolution logic. You can also customize the resolution logic in the app service provider by using the bind callback method. So this closure actually receive a value and then actually look into the particular table you want to check in. So you see for here we say route bind post, then a callback function, return post where ULID is the value. So you can actually format the string here that is received. You can do some stuff here if you want to check, you want to validate the string if it is accurate or not. Maybe you are expecting a particular length of string. You can do all of that validation here and return an error. So when you head over back to the post model, like I showed you just now, you have to comment this out to be sure that it works. So that's why I'm doing it in the app service provider here. Then when you come back to the web, you just use this route. So when I come over here and refresh, you see that it still retrieves it. So even if I try using an ID now, like 1 for example, it shows 404 because it is no longer using the default ID model binding. So but then it uses the ulead that we defined here. So we can also change that to say this is, let's say, ID, and save. When you refresh, it says 404. So when you come over here and you say 1, it retrieves 1. So this is another way to customize resolution logic in Laravel. Alternatively, you can also override the resolve route binding method in your Eloquent model to customize how route parameters are resolved into the model instances. So I'm going to comment this out and head back to the post model, and then I'm going to comment this. So the same way this ulead works, if you still go back now, so I'm going to come back to web. So I'm still going to use this particular post, and then I'll come over here, refresh. You see that it says 404 no found, because in the post model here, we say resolve route binding using the ulead. But if I change it to ID, for example, and I refresh, it's going to work. But if I change it by the ulead and save, and I refresh, it's going to fail. It's going to say 404 no found. But I can say use ulead here, so you see it retrieves that record. So this is how to use the resolve route binding in Laravel. So next, using route model binding in controllers. Like I said, there are different ways through which Laravel handles all of these route parameters. So if you head over to the web.php here, I have, so you can also, instead of just returning it directly from the route, you want to go through a post like a controller. Maybe you want to do other stuff. So you see this is route post, then post controller show. When you come to the show method here, you could see that it says post. So it injects an instance of the post into this method. So maybe you want to retrieve the comments related to that post or other content related to the post. You can do that here before returning the response. So we save that, and then we head back here, we refresh, so it returns the same. This is another method you can use to handle route model binding via controllers. So there's also route model binding through relationships. So if you come back to web, so let's say, for example, I'm going to comment this out and then just comment this. So let's say you want to get a particular user's post. So I'll head over here to the route and then just say users /1/post. So, and then you see it retrieves the post that belongs to a user ID of 1. So when I change this ID to 2, for example, you see it says 404 no found because there's no user 2 with a post. So when I say 1, it retrieves it. So, and then you could see that now I could retrieve multiple of these users posts via the route model. So you can actually do you can bind relationship. You can pick a user and the post that belongs to the user. So when I come back here and I like comment this out and I refresh here, you see that it says an error. So I want to use ID. So 1, it retrieves the first article for that particular user. 2, it retrieves the article, it retrieves the post with an ID of 2 that belongs to the user 1. This is another way to handle route model binding with relationship. Best way here, like I showed you here, is to use the get route key name ulead so that user cannot easily predict what you are trying to retrieve. So when you come over here, you see you can still pick that now. So you can also enforce relationship. When you come to the web, you can do a way to say you want to check if this actually by default handles that already, but you want to go beyond that level. You can actually enforce to check the post user ID and then the user ID if it is the same before you return the response. So now lastly, like I showed you just now, it's returning 404 if it is not found, and then a 404 page. You want to customize the response. So how to handle missing model behaviors instead of just having to return a 404 page. So you head over to the app.php here, and then there is what we call not found exception error. So in Laravel 11, all of these error handling exceptions can be defined in the app readability.php, which is found under the bootstrap folder. So I will uncomment this now and then save. So it says get message. So it's going to return the message of the error, like I'm going to show you now something here. Just pay close attention. So when you refresh, it is found. It will bring it back. So when I change this, so I'm just going to go back to my normal route here. So post here, and then so it's going to retrieve an article with this ULID. But if I do one, for example, so it says no query result for model app models post. So this is the error message that it's been returned. However, you don't want to return this kind of view to user, okay? So you want to customize this message. What I do is that you just comment this out. So what I do is that I say get message if there is no query result for model in that particular error message, return record not found, or oops, an error occurred. So we don't want to return such response, so that it's not like this is quite a technical error, so it is not relevant to a user. They don't really know the meaning of that. So I'm going to save and uncomment this and then try again. So you see it says record not found, okay, compared to just returning a technical error message. So this is a better way of handling that in Laravel 11. So I'm going to push all of these codes to my repository and leave the link to the repository in the comment section. Yeah, that being said, in this video we've learned about Laravel. That being said, in this video we've learned about the Laravel route model binding feature that simplifies retrieving Eloquent model instances in routes and controllers. So it offers several benefits. It keeps the code cleaner by allowing controllers to focus on business logic rather than data retrieval. I also show you how to handle exception errors when a particular resource is not being found. Either you can customize the view or you can customize the response if it is an API. So it improves readability by making it clear from the route definition which model is expected, enhancing code maintainability. Alright, that being said, let me know what you think about route model binding in a Laravel application in the comment section. Don't forget to like and share the video. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, kindly click the subscribe button. Until next time, bye.